If you've ever looked at your benefits package and seen a 401k option, a 403b option, a 457b option, and thought to yourself, what's the difference and does it even matter? Then this video is for you. Because here's the thing, a lot of employees have access to these plans, and some employees even have access to multiple options of these plans. And you may not even realize the advantages or the differences or the nuances that come with each plan. So I'm going to walk through each plan, who offers them, the nuances between them, and some strategies that you may not be aware of. So let's get into it. So before we get into the differences of each plan, let's talk about what each plan has in common with each other, because there's actually a lot of overlap here. All three of these plans, the 401k, the 403b, the 457b, are employer-sponsored retirement plans. They allow you to contribute pre-tax dollars from your paycheck, which lowers your taxable income for the year. Your investments grow tax deferred, meaning you're not paying taxes on dividends and capital gains along the way. It's what we call a tax-advantaged account. You'll pay taxes later when you take distributions in retirement. And for 2026, which is this current year, all three plans share the same base contribution limit at $24,500. If you're 50 or older, you get an additional catch-up contribution of $8,000, bringing you to $32,500. And thanks to Secure 2.0, if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, you actually get a super catch-up of $11,250, a little bit more than that $8,000, which brings your total to $35,750, which is a big deal if you're in that window and you're trying to play catch-up for retirement. All three plans can also offer a Roth option, depending on your employer's plan design. And a new wrinkle for 2026, if you earned over $150,000 in FICA wages the prior year, your catch-up contributions must be made as Roth contributions. That's a Secure 2.0 change that just kicked in. So, same contribution limits, same tax-deferred growth, similar structures. Let's get into the differences. The 401k is the one that most people are familiar with. This is the plan that's typically offered by for-profit private sector companies. If you work for a large corporation, a lot of small businesses, really any for-profit entity, this is most likely what you got. A few things make the 401k stand out. And the first is employer matching. Nearly 80% of 401k plans offer some kind of employer match, according to Fidelity. That's basically free money. Your company says, hey, if you put in 4%, we'll match that and put in 4% as well, or some variation of that. This is by far one of the biggest advantages of the 401k because employer matching is far less common when it comes to 403bs and 457s. Second, ERISA protection. 401k plans are subject to the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, ERISA, which provides creditor protection for your assets. If something happens to your employer, that money is held in a trust and protected. That's important. Third, the total contribution limit for employee plus employer contributions for 2026 is $72,000. So between what you and your employer puts in there, that's a lot of room to save. Now the downside, if you take your money out of a 401k before you reach the age of 59 and a half, it's typically a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And that's on top of regular income taxes. And there are some exceptions. You may have heard of hardship withdrawals or the rule of 55 if you leave your employer. But as a general rule, your money's locked up until 59 and a half. So now onto the 403b. This one is offered by public schools, churches, universities, other tax-exempt organizations. So think teachers, professors, hospital workers, people who work in nonprofit systems, that sort of thing. It's sometimes called a tax-sheltered annuity, or TSA for short, which is an older term when these types of plans were primarily invested in annuity contracts. In terms of structure, a 403b operates very similarly to a 401k. Same contribution limits, same tax treatment, same 10% early withdrawal penalty if you take before 59 and a half. The employer can also make contributions, and the total combined limit is $72,000 for 2026. Same as the 401k. Very similar. Here's one nuance for a 403b, the 15-year rule. If you've worked for the same eligible employer for more than 15 years, you may be able to contribute an extra $3,000 per year on top of everything else up to a $15,000 lifetime cap. Not every plan offers this, but if yours does, and you've been at the same school district or same hospital for a long time, that's extra savings capacity most people don't know about. One thing I will say about 403b plans, historically the investment options can be very limited comparative to 401ks. A lot of 403bs lean heavily into annuity products, which can come with higher fees. That's been getting better over the last few years as plans have been adding more mutual fund options, but it's worth looking into what your plan offers and what you're paying in fees. Fees matter over 20, 30 years of compounding. All right, now we get to the 457B. And this is the one that most people probably overlook. The 457B is a deferred compensation plan that's primarily offered to state and local government employees, as well as some nonprofit workers. Same $24,500 base contribution limit for 2026, same catch-up provisions. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a few differences here. Number one, no early withdrawal penalty. This is a big one. Unlike the 401k and 403b, the 457b does not carry that 10% early withdrawal penalty, even if you take distributions before 59.5, as long as you separate it from your employer. You'll still pay regular income tax on the distribution, but you avoid that 10% penalty. If you're somebody who's planning to retire before 59.5, or you're making a career change, this is a massive advantage. Number two, the 3-year catch-up provision. In the 3 years before your plan's defined normal retirement age, you may be eligible to contribute up to double the normal limit. So that's $49,000 in 2026. You can't use this at the same time as the age 50 catch-up, but it's incredibly powerful if you're closing in on retirement and want to make up for years that you didn't max out. Number three, contribution stacking. The IRS treats a 457B as a separate contribution bucket than a 401k and a 403b. This means if your employer offers both the 403b and a 457b, which is very common in education and government, you can max out both. In 2026, that's $24,500 into your 403b and then another $24,500 into your 457b for a combined $49,000 in employee deferrals. If you're 50 or older with catch-ups on both plans, you could be looking at $65,000 or more. That's a really powerful saving strategy that most people don't realize they have access to. Now, here's an important distinction I need to make. Governmental 457B plans, the ones sponsored by state and local governments, are held in trust and your assets are protected from creditors. Non-governmental 457B plans, however, like those at nonprofits, are different. With a non-governmental plan, the money technically belongs to the employer until you receive it, which means the money could be at risk if the employer faces creditor issues. So that's something to really be aware of depending on who sponsors your plan. All right, so let me bring this all together for a quick comparison. The 401k for for-profit employees. Great employer matching, ERISA protection, but you've got the 10% penalty before 59.5. The 403b for nonprofit employees and education. Very similar to a 401k with the added bonus of a 15-year catch-up rule. And 457b for some government and nonprofit employees. No early withdrawal penalty, contribution stacking potential, and the 3-year catch-up. So what's the strategy here? If you only have access to one plan, max it out if you can. Get the employer match at minimum. If you have access to both a 403b and a 457, seriously consider contributing to both, depending on what your financial situation looks like, of course. That dual contribution strategy can accelerate your retirement savings significantly. Make sure you're reviewing your investment options and paying attention to any potential fees. All right, so that's the breakdown between 401k, 403b, and 457. I hope this clarified some things for you. If you have questions about your specific financial situation, it's always good to talk to a professional who can sit down, talk with you, and look at the full picture. If you like this video, feel free to follow me, and I'll see you in the next one.